she'd been drinking, possibly enough to impair her judgment. She left with 3 locals she didn't know. The next day, the Alabama teens woke to find Natalie's bags, her passport, and money in the room, ready for the flight home. But Natalie was nowhere to be found.
Well, it's the phone call that no parent can imagine.
Beth Holloway was driving back home to Alabama from a weekend getaway of her own. She expected to pick Natalie up from the airport that night. And then her cell phone rang.
The travel agent who'd organized the trip came to the phone, was just relaying to me that Natalie had not gathered in the lobby of the Holiday Inn Hotel with the other students as they were about to depart for the airport. I knew instantly that something terrible had happened, just because of Natalie's character and history. I did not have the issues of boyfriends, alcohol, drugs, irresponsible behavior. There was just no question that something terrible had happened. I knew that the only way that she would not be showing up is if she were being held against her will, kidnapped, or she had been murdered. I was driving at 120 miles an hour, and all 3 of us were just, frantically making phone calls and just trying to get anyone, to secure anyone who could help us.
The women called 911, the FBI, agencies in Aruba, and got nowhere. Natalie had only been missing for 12 hours. Authorities would not begin searching until at least 48 hours had passed. So Beth took matters into her own hands and found a family friend with a private plane.
We just went down there with a change of clothes, just thinking we're just going to go get her. How hard can this be? It's a tiny island. We're going to go in there and we're going to pull her out from somewhere.
Less than 24 hours after Natalie disappeared, Beth, her husband Jug Twitty, and 5 friends landed on Aruba, armed with information from the graduates about Natalie's last night.
They knew that his name was Joran or Joran or something of that sort, but they didn't have a last name. But they had a description.
The group headed to the hotel where the graduates had stayed, but Natalie still had not returned. Beth Holloway started her own search for her daughter, but it would get too far too fast for the small Aruban police force. Beth questioned the hotel night manager about the young man named Joran, who was last seen with Natalie.
She said that she knew him well, and that, of course, he was a local, which we didn't know. We thought he was a tourist, because that's what the students had conveyed to us. And she said he was 17.
The mother was confused. The teen who spent time with Natalie and her friends wasn't 19. And he wasn't visiting Aruba from Holland. He was a local. Beth wondered why he would lie. Joran became the first person she wanted to find. She viewed this casino footage from the night before. It showed Joran and Natalie sitting at the same table. Meanwhile, others in the group tried to track him down. After 4 hours on the island, they had an address and a last name, Vandersloot.
It took us about 20 to 30 minutes to secure 2 Aruban police officials to accompany us to the Vandersloot home.
There, around 3 a.m., Beth and the group from Alabama came face-to-face with Joran Vandersloot and his friend Deepak Kalpo, the owner and driver of the silver Honda Natalie was last spotted in.
We had a confrontation at the home.
In what would be the first of many versions of their story, the boys admitted leaving Carlos and Charlie's bar with Natalie around 1 a.m. Then they went even further.
Things kind of got very heated among the 2 suspects and some of the men from home, because they were describing some of the conduct, the sexual conduct that they engaged in with Natalie in the car.
Joran told the group that he kissed and fondled Natalie in the back seat.
And, of course, that was causing a lot of tension. Everything was beginning to get very heated. And they were describing how drunk Natalie was to the men from home.
The boys said they drove around, then dropped Natalie off at the Holiday Inn around 2 a.m., and that they'd show Beth's group exactly where they left her.
Very elaborately described to us, how she got out of the car and she fell and she bumped her head. And so it was a very elaborate description, a very elaborate presentation for them to take us there.
According to Joran and Deepak, they drove off as Natalie headed toward the hotel lobby. The confrontation in front of the Vandersloot home was an early turning point in the investigation. Police didn't even know if they had a crime on their hands. Beth Holloway was a distraught mother. And Joran Vandersloot, one of the last people seen with her daughter, was, in her opinion, insulting.
I just told him I want my daughter back. Give her back, you know. And he just very arrogant and hitting his chest like, you know, what do you want me to do about it? And I turned away because I've never seen a young male act that arrogant and disrespectful to an adult, especially an adult who they know is in a foreign country and that their daughter is missing, and this is the individual that was last seen with her alive.
The desperate mother turned to the Aruban police for help, but felt like nobody was listening.
First he told us he had to eat his frosted flakes and take a shave and everything before he could deal with us.
When the detective was ready, Beth told him all she had learned.
We wanted to convey what they had told us, all the details surrounding that initial night and how they'd taken us to the Holiday Inn, and also really establishing who Natalie was. I didn't want him to think that he was dealing with a drug addict or a runaway.
In these crucial first days of the investigation, Natalie's disappearance was already being seen through two different points of view. Beth Holloway thought the police weren't taking her or her daughter's disappearance seriously enough. To the police, the mother and her friends were expecting too much too soon.
I want some answers, and I think that anyone in my shoes would feel the same way.
And the case was just getting started.